First to the stage, I welcome Kevin.
Morning. Hi, everyone. So what I want to speak to you a little bit today on is the future of millennials, right? The accounting profession, it is heavily dependent on the millennials. I know Shane spoke earlier about the perennials who are the brightest and will have the gap, but they will do what it takes to get to the next level. But the millennials are those who are already in it. They will carry us through the future, and they are responsible for the shift that we currently have in the accounting profession. And if our leaders or firms today, they don't acknowledge our millennials, they will run the risk of seeing talent walk out the door. The millennials force today, our firms today, they are mainly comprised of the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds. And it's important to note that these millennials today, without knowing what is important to them, and without changing the central dynamics of the workforce, we are going to struggle to keep this talent. So I talked about changing the central dynamics. So we want to ensure that the culture that is there, the interactions that is there, the working styles, the compensation that is offered will be something that is attractive to the millennials. We can't use archaic techniques. We can't use old-fashioned ways and traditional techniques to incite millennials. They don't care about how things were done in the past. And as the video that Dwayne showed about Simon, it's not our fault, right? It's not our fault. Right, so what millennials want? We want a casual, fun, and a friendly working environment. It doesn't mean we want to play, but we want something that will be beneficial to us. We care about the work-life balance. We care about the flexibility. And we care about things that may not necessarily appeal so much to the traditional folks. A few things millennials cherish. Right? We like to have a clear understanding of a firm's vision. Right? If there's goal congruence, if there's a match between what we want and what the firm needs are, then we like that organization, or we will walk out the door. Because if there isn't a match in terms of the needs of the firm doesn't match your personal needs, there's no benefit. Right? We have opportunities for regular feedback, and this is something that we will touch on a bit later on. Right? We want to make sure that regular check-ins are happening, that we know where we are, where we stand, and again, we like opportunities for promotions. Right? We don't like to spend about 10 years in an organization to move up. We want to know that after 2 or 3 years, we get promoted, we reach up, and that might sound strange to the traditional folks because you guys had to bite the bullet, right? You guys had to pay your dues, but the millennials are not like that. We want to, once we know our worth, we know what we could bring to the table, well, yeah, we're definitely ready. So I'll probably pass on to my other panelists at this point.
I will be discussing millennials as drivers for diversity and change in our environment. My presentation will start by playing a video which really explains what diversity and inclusion means. So millennials have been defined or explained as liberal and fearless and bold and challengers of the status quo. Some of the key traits we noticed with millennials are these. Millennials are curious. They want to know when, they want to know how and why, and the answers they require need more than "and it's always been done this way" approach. They ask for fact-based answers, answers that are proven based on evidence, on observations, answers that are efficient and effective to the questions that they ask. Millennials are also connected. Millennials use technology as a tool to reach into different cultures and experiences, countries, perceptions, and ideas. They use that to connect globally with other people and other environments. Millennials are also courageous. Millennials are advocates for sensitive topics. They're liberal, they're bold. They're not scared to challenge the status quo. Millennials are also cognizant of bias. Millennials acknowledge that each and every one of us have an inherent or unconscious bias. To address this unconscious bias, they seek out training, discussion, knowledge, open dialogue to address it because they realize that this unconscious bias affects decision making. Millennials are also committed. Millennials have a strong sense of purpose and a strong sense of personal responsibility for change. It's a part of who they are. They know what's going on in the current environment. They know what happened in history. So they see it as personal responsibility to lead this evolution. Diversity is the measure, inclusion is the mechanism. Traditionally, these terms were used as synonymous. Millennials are now transforming the definition and separating the two. Millennials are more likely than any other generation to separately define diversity and inclusion. Moreover, millennials define diversity as viewpoints, experiences, cultures, backgrounds, whereas inclusion leads to behaviors, perceptions, policies, and practices. It's much more than having a different face in the room, but including them in the decision-making process. At Deloitte, we conducted a global survey on millennials using over 13,000 millennials. Our global survey spanned across 42 countries and territories. Our key findings were this. Disruption can promote innovation, growth, and agility. And while all this positive change is going on and millennials are driving it, there's also a downside. Millennials are as least optimistic as any other generation when it comes to economic and social political change. Millennials are also what we call disillusioned. They don't follow or trust the traditional political or social platforms. They use research and technology to find out different information and challenge those traditional ways of doing things. Millennials also value experiences. Our research proved that millennials would value an experience over a higher paid salary. Millennials are skeptical of business motives. In countries such as the US and European countries, there are now quotas which demand or require diversity in gender and race. In this generation, in our generation, we need to know that business strategy is more than just meeting the quota. It's actually a genuine need to include everyone. Millennials also let their wallets do the talking. So when personal values or personal goals do not align with business strategy, business culture, organizational goals, they leave. To inspire loyalty, organizations now have to align organizational goals to personal goals. By ensuring that corporate strategy incorporates plans to meet societal and personal concerns, business can re-engage younger generations and inspire greater loyalty. Thank you.
Sorry. Right, millennials. So, who's this new generation, this new species of people that we talk about? We hardly understand who they are, what are their language, hashtag this, hashtag ICATT, hashtag I'm here, yeah? So, we're here to try and solve the mystery of millennials, okay? And one of the ways of dealing with millennials is giving them purpose. So we're going to go through some the agenda, which is like characteristics of a millennial, and then we'll talk about the experience in terms of purpose, and how they want to be mentored, and how they want to shape the future, and then tips about being good millennials, okay? So some characteristics, 1984 to present, some say they're self-centered, unable to face up to difficulties, some say lazy, they want success now, but then they have good things as well, right? They tech savvy, right? They know the latest trends. They want to impact society, right? Some of them, sometimes you would say they're addicted to technology, right? Always on the phone. So in terms of purpose, right? Some of you might be able to agree with this slide, but what my friends think I do, make loads of money. What my mom thinks I do, some sort of important meeting all the time because she can never get on to me, right? What society thinks I do, crunching numbers. What my boss thinks, do nothing. What I think I do, have loads of work to do, right? And what I actually do is these really complicated spreadsheets and looking at standards and trying to solve problems for my clients, okay? So in terms of identifying with purpose, so what millennials want is that they want to work with an organization that have a well-defined purpose, and this purpose is not just a statement that you put on your wall, but is actually integrated into everything, every activity in the organization. So I could speak a little about KPMG in terms of how we deal with this. So we went through an exercise of purpose and building purpose within the organization globally. And it was all about inspiring change and empowering confidence, right? And I found during the activity, I felt like I could relate to KPMG. The reason being is because we help clients, you know, we do loads of training. Then I go out there, meet clients, help with the issues, and then I get to impact Trinidad and Tobago. Luckily for me, I was able to go to the UK and then have a global impact. And that sort of helped me realize that this purpose that the organization stood for is something I liked. Right? Other organizations like Google, etc., Facebook, similar sort of thing. They have a significant impact on society, and millennials like that. Now, you might have a smaller organization, maybe you have a tech startup that is impacting millions in the world, but you may have a significant purpose. For example, Habitat for Humanities, they have a purpose of building homes for families, etc. Okay? And millennials like to be a part of that. So this is one of my favorite movies, Matrix, where Agent Smith basically tells Neo, without purpose, we will not exist. It is purpose that created us, connects us. So you all know that famous line, right? So purpose is very important. Without it, we won't know what we're going to do. We won't know where we need to go, right? And establishing that purpose amongst millennials is extremely important. If not, they'll go find their own, start their own business, and follow their own purpose, okay? And we don't want that. What millennials need, and they don't like to admit this, by the way, don't say I told you that, but we need mentors. The reason being is because we don't have the experience. Okay, and a lot of the people out there in the older generations have the experience. So the coach or the mentor must lead by example. I always remember one of my mentors, they used to work with the team all the time, and they work late with us. So we have a deadline, they sit with us and work the partner on the engagement. Other partners wouldn't really do that because they had other clients, and they were at different locations in the world, etc. But this guy, he used to sit with the team and work until like midnight, and then travel with the team, eat with the team, and teach it in the moment. And I mean, that was his style, right? But other persons have different styles. You have to be a good communicator. And when I say communicator, you have to motivate, not just tell and direct and say, well, you must do this or else, okay? You need to lead by the example. You have to reassure them constantly. Millennials always want a pat on their back. You know, you did a good job, well done. That's a good presentation you did, etc., etc., okay? Not saying this might be a good one, but yeah. One of the greatest values of mentors is the ability to see ahead what others cannot see and to help them navigate a course to their destination. So that mentor needs to see the future. One of my mentors, and well, he still is my mentor now, the managing partner, KPMG, he always try and set the vision. Or we used to say, sell the dream, right? He always tell us, you know, yeah, you have this pathway ahead of you, and you know, you could go on, study hard, pass the exams, and become a senior, and then you'll become a manager and do a secondment. He always used to be saying that all the time. I was like, why does this guy keep saying these things? But eventually, his dream for me when I was an assistant many years ago became a reality. And there were times I almost left the firm, you know, because I was chasing money, blah, blah, blah. And he always had that faith in me all the time, right? And that kind of mentor is somebody good to have because they would see the potential and the passion, and they'll guide you in the right direction. Right, millennials want to shape the future. They don't like to be told what to do. Instead, they like to be motivated or directed. And well, because we are going to be the future, like it or not, right? We're going to be the future prime ministers, presidents, future head of ICATT, future entrepreneurs, business leaders, right? We going to have to shape the future. We want to say in that future now, because if it is we go in the wrong direction now, it will take too long to get us back on track. Okay, so some of these smaller decisions in the organizations, give it to a millennial to try and figure out. Okay, and maybe give them some guidance and let them try and do it. Because bet your bottom dollar, they will come back with you with some sort of loads of crazy ideas, which one of them might work. Okay? So inhale the future and exhale the past. I like this slide because yes, we need to study the future, but the past is also important, so we need to learn from it. Okay, so we can't just leave and forget about the old generation. We still need to learn from them. So some tips for millennials. What we need to do is work hard, because there are many highly qualified, energetic, and passionate millennials out there looking to take your opportunity. You're not the only one sitting down, studying for these exams, trying to make partners, etc., etc. Other people out there in the world. Yes, the world is out there, not just Trinidad and Tobago. There are other people out there who could do just the same thing you could do. So it's all about trying to outwork them and being very smart. Right? Don't run from difficult situations. Embrace challenges. One perfect example is this presentation. I did not want to do this presentation when I was told I had to do it. However, again, same guy, same mentor, you know, you should do it, position yourself. I was like, all right, I'll try and do it. Okay? So, I mean, if you think about a diamond, right? So a diamond goes through loads of heat, pressure, right? You need to cut the diamond. It goes through a lot before it becomes a diamond. And then it becomes very valuable, and you spend loads of money trying to buy it, right? Especially if you're trying to get engaged, etc. So it's something you should think about in terms of a millennial. You have to go through the pressure. You have to take the challenges. We need to lose this soft skin. You know, we can't take negative criticism and all that. We need to sort of become more tough in this industry, especially in this profession. Right? Avoid the need for short-term goals at the expense of long-term success. And again, going back to that previous example, there are many times in the profession, especially when you're just about qualified, etc., you start looking at the money, you know, you want to make real money. No, I must buy the house, buy the fancy car, I want to drive the Audis and all that, like the partners. And now finish school, but I want to drive it. So the thing about it is, we have to kind of stop and realize there's a pathway, there's a road ahead. And this is something that we need to remember, and we need to put in the time to reach that goal. sometimes selling short or just going after something that's not really a goal is not what you need to do at this time. You have to try and look through all that and see where you want to be at in the future. One of my managers at KPMG told me once when I was making a very important decision, he said, don't think about how this action or whatever will impact you now. Think about how it will impact your family years from now. What would your future child or kids say to you about this decision when they get older? Was this a really good decision? And that made me think a lot. I mean, good mentoring, right? So looking at the long term is very important. Align yourself with the right mentors and crowd. And then this last one I think is very important for millennials. Control your use of time. Time is precious, right? It's like water in your hands, right? It just runs out eventually when you hold it. And I think being a millennial, we are under extreme pressure for time because it's not just the cell phone, social media, it's just the various things that grab at our attention. So yes, we have family commitments, we have the normal job, but then you have higher demands on yourself in terms of trying to make it ahead of all the other millennials, and you just don't have enough time in the day. So having a timetable, putting down the phone during your more key times in the day when you could be most effective, downloading apps to monitor your use of the phone and social media, etc. That is also a good help. And just making sure you do what you're supposed to do in the time that you have allocated. So all the meetings where they just go over and it just takes too long, try and cut it down a little bit. And just be smart about it, right? Because we are very smart people, we are very intelligent, and we know how to deal with this life of being a millennial. Okay, so some examples of people who made it. So you have the Mark Zuckerbergs, Jessica Alba, even Spiegel and Bobby Murphy, so they formed Snapchat. So yeah, there are many people as good examples of millennials out there in the world. So if they could do it, we could do it too. Right? Yeah, so that's it, and thank you for your time.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So I'm here to kind of talk about the common misconceptions of a millennial and attempt to try to bust some myths about millennials and then talk a little bit about what we look for in an ideal workplace. So a week ago, I did a survey with a group of people. Some were millennials, some were non-millennials, and I asked them to come up with some words that they associate with when they hear the term millennial. So the bigger the word, the more popular the response. So you see they're entitled, lazy, young. And then we have some positives, technological, collaborative. So while some of them may be true, there are some that require some further discussion. So I stand here to try to bust some of these myths. Myth number 1, millennials are self-entitled and want everything now. I think that's not true. I think millennials have a clear idea of what they want in their career. They're very driven by career growth. And as Chay said, we want to work for a company that has worked towards a given purpose. So at EY, we have building a better working world. That's our tagline, and that's our purpose around the firm. I feel happy to be a part of that purpose, working towards that purpose. Myth number 2, they're lazy and don't want to work hard. Well, if we define work hard by working long hours, then I could see why you may call us lazy. But to be honest, we live in a day, in this age, where we have access to lots of technology, tools, information at our fingertips that allows us to work more efficiently and be more productive without having to work such long hours. Myth number 3, we all want to work from home in our PJs while watching Netflix. Well, what's wrong with working at home in our PJs if we deliver on time and deliver a quality output? But on a more serious note, actually, we love to collaborate, we love to team, we love to learn from each other, and most likely than not, we'd prefer to come to work and be around each other in a fun and social environment. Myth number 4, millennials avoid face-to-face communication. Well, what other generation, besides maybe Generation Z, do you know that FaceTimes more than us? We actually do prefer in-person discussions. We prefer to be around people, discussing ideas, open to interaction, and actually we like to talk to our mentors and get feedback on training and how we can do better. And we prefer to do this in person. So that's having busted some of those myths.
Hi, I'm Melanie, the Millennial.
Well, I was going to introduce you to my friend, the digital me. She may look a little familiar.
Hi, I'm Melanie, the Millennial. Take a look and see what an ideal workplace means for me.
So I'm just going to go through some of what we as millennials want from an ideal workplace. 1, we want flexibility. Whilst we may say we want flexible work arrangements, we want to work remotely, we actually, admittedly, we just want the option to do so. We may not take you up on that offer more than twice a year, but we still want the option. 2, caring leadership. Having management who can empathize and are compassionate with certain circumstances in your own life is always key. 3, career progression. We want to have an identifiable career track with milestones for progression. 4, collaboration. I always tell my staff, teamwork makes the dream work. We love to collaborate. We love to communicate, share ideas. That's just us. 5, purpose and personal development. Well, after having seen Chay's, presentation on purpose, it's clear that we want to work towards a given purpose. And number 6, technology. We want to have exposure to the latest tools and technology out there. We want to be able to work more efficiently and leverage on these, and new technology that is going on out there, and, So I think that's 6 key tips for an ideal workplace for millennials. I have a little message to the employers I'm going to end with. Remember, as a reminder, every generation brings something new to the workplace, and millennials are no exception. As a group, we tend to be highly educated, love to learn, and grew up with the internet and digital tools in a way that can be highly useful when leveraged properly. So, to end, I hope that if anybody ever asks you, what words come to mind when you hear the word millennial, these are the kind of words that would pop up first, before entitled and lazy and all those other not so nice words. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Thanks to all our panelists. We have about 12 minutes left, and I think the app for submitting questions is open. I'm not sure if any questions have come in. I have 1 or 2 which I would start with, but I'll wait to see if there's anything coming in from the crowd over the next 10 minutes. All right, so I guess I'll start by just throwing a couple of questions at the panelists, and I will start with Maura. Maura, you talked about diversity and inclusion being 2 different things. Could you expand on the difference between the 2, and what do you think are some of the challenges facing employers locally in relation to diversity and inclusion?
Absolutely. So traditionally, diversity meant genders, races, a mix of those. Right now, diversity also means a mix of experiences, opinions, more than just demographic. And where you have inclusion means that these ideas, these varied ideas, and these varied demographics represented in the workforce are also included in the decision-making process. The challenge as employers is now to include those varied demographics into the C-suite, build them up through mentorship, training, so that when given the opportunity or when the need arises for them to be involved, they're ready, and they're ready to be included and to share their knowledge and answer questions.
Okay, thanks, Maura. One of the comments that came up in a couple of the presentations was about millennials being a little bit more sensitive. And Kevin, you talked about in your presentation the importance of feedback, constant feedback from millennials. Do you think millennials are good at accepting constructive criticism?
Yeah. So, Dwayne, I mean, this is a touchy topic, and I know a lot of people tend to ascribe the term snowflake to the millennial generation, and it is defined in the dictionary as a derogatory term, actually. So, I mean, a lot of the millennials are seen as being sensitive, too into the feelings, they can't take criticism, and a lot of things that are around those lines. And the fact of the matter is, we grew up under a different era, right? We grew up where, for example, things like corporal punishment or discipline that you would have expected from your parents way back when is something that we was not accustomed to. Now you could go to jail for disciplining your child, right? But actually now, but way back then, you grew up and you had that tough skin. You went out knowing what the real world had to offer. Now the millennials, they enter into a place where they didn't have that toughness embedded in them. And they went out in the world of work, being a little bit sensitive, not being able to take feedback too well, and I'll answer your second question in a while. And these are the type of things that I guess would be ascribed to millennials. Another thing too, if you call us the snowflake generation, there has to be a snowflake generator, something that creates a snowflake. And what I will blame or say causes this is social media, the internet, Facebook, you name it. Because now we have access to varying opinions, varying vlogs, videos, etc., articles that we read. And we hear what is out there. We know what people are saying that we should be doing better, what kind of treatment you might get in another country versus where you might have in a place like Trinidad or in the Caribbean. And we may say, okay, well, these are how my employers should be treating me. And they would then ascribe that to whatever company that they work into and say, hey, I'm not being treated well. And all of that is probably their snowflake generator in a nutshell. So okay. In terms of the feedback, I would say, well, that's the F word for us. We don't we don't necessarily like feedback because naturally it hits our negative bias, right? Any kind of feedback, you could bubble wrap it, you could put it across the best way possible. From the time you start to critique the way I did something, I will start to feel a kind of way. And it's important that feedback is brought across the way, and I think there was an article, I think by Forbes some years ago, where we should have feedback in the way of perspective. You say, well, hey, I think this is an alternative way to do something, and you bring it across in that way. And for feedback, it's also important that the person delivering that feedback is the appropriate person, because sometimes you get feedback that comes the wrong way, and it just, the millennials disengage. They don't want to have anything to do with it.
Actually, so that brings me to part of Chay's presentation, which I wanted to touch on. Chay talked about the importance of a mentor, and he went on quite a bit about different mentors that may have impacted you. And I guess, having a mentor is tied a lot to feedback and that feedback system. Do you think it's important for the mentor to be someone who's within that same generation who understands, or you think it's important to have a mentor who is from a different generation that can help you bridge the gap?
Well, my opinion on this is, depending on what you want, you may need a mentor from the various generations, right? So I'll give you an example. At the start of my career, I needed a mentor who's done it, who's been there. So obviously somebody from the older generation, right? They were very useful at the time because, they've lived it. So they just explained to me what the path to success is, and I just go ahead and do it, right? And however, when I moved to the UK for my time on secondment, I did data analytics, had no experience with it at all. However, the guy who was mentoring me was like 3 years younger than me, and basically knew everything about technology and IT and the methodology, all that. And yeah, I just used to sit down and listen to what I need to do and how to do it. So it really depends on what you're looking for. And I think as millennials, we need to have an open mind about everybody and everyone and be like, all because somebody's 10 or 15 years older than you don't mean they will make a good mentor, right? And you have to have that tough skin and accept open and honest communication. And the flip side now, for the mentors, they need to realize, okay, one piece of advice won't fit all, yeah? You also need to tailor it to the person's needs, so get to know the person, spend some time getting to know who they are and all that, especially the millennials, and then sort of tailor your advice for that situation or that person. Okay, so to answer your question, it depends. Yeah?
Great, thanks. Well, that's usually the right answer. Right, Melanie, I'm going to throw one at you, which is a little bit, you kind of touched on it in your presentation about the contrast between wanting flexibility and wanting work-life balance and being called lazy, and the contrast between using technology and still wanting face-to-face interaction. So how do you achieve the right levels of face-to-face interaction, but also have the flexibility to work virtually or work somewhere which is a different physical location?
Yeah, well, as I said, flexible work arrangements, we want the option to have it. We love collaboration. So, I mean, for me, when I have a report due tomorrow, it's much more convenient and more productive to work at home, right? And other times I want to work with my team. I want to get ideas. I want to be open to hearing what their opinions are. So, I mean, with technology, the pace of technological change these days, like you can work from home and you could still have that face-to-face communication with them as well. So I don't see it one or the other. I see that we could have everything because of the technology that we have at our fingertips, at our disposal. We have access to so much information just at the snap of our fingers, So, I mean, it's kind of a mix of everything.
Okay. I don't know if there are any questions which have come through. I'm not seeing anything on the screen. We have 3 more minutes. Okay. Right. Actually, this is a question which I saw popping up from Melanie's slides again. The word American was one of the things which popped up as a buzzword in one of your slides as being associated with millennials. There tends to be a thinking that it's an American term, it's a Western term. So I have a question here. What about millennials in China, India, Africa? Is the whole millennial thing a rich Western thing, or do we think there's consistency regardless of what society you grew up in? I don't know if you guys have a comment on that. But I don't know if you think the challenges that face millennials in our society, because I guess we're heavily influenced by what happens in the US, is different from what faces millennials in other societies.
Yeah. Well, I could probably touch on it a little. So I know PwC did a global survey on millennials, and their findings was that the term millennial is somewhat universal. There are little bits and pieces that are different, but it is a somewhat universal term.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, just from working in a global firm and having that experience recently, the fact that when you work with these people from China, Africa, India, they have the same problems with people from the America, Toronto, I mean, anywhere in the world, and they experience the same challenges, have the same wants, and they want the same thing more or less. The only thing different, it would probably be a little bit of the cultural expressions about it, and so for example, the Chinese might be a little bit different in terms of how they deal with the situation versus like people from the US, etc., who are more outgoing, etc. So I think, it's just the same issue, same problem, and then the same solution at the end of the day in terms of dealing with it.
Great, thanks. Not seeing any more. So, Chay, I'll go back to you again. You talked about purpose being aligned. How easy or difficult do you think it is for a company's purpose to be aligned with an individual's purpose?
Well, it's quite difficult actually, but it's something that we need to just do, all right? So, for example, when I just started working at KPMG, my purpose was to try and take over the world, basically, right? So, make partners as soon as I can, blah, blah, we need to do this now, qualify within a year. But the thing is, as I became a dad, then my purpose sort of changed a little bit. Now it's all about being a family man and also balancing work. So as a company, you need to kind of understand what the needs are of the millennials and sort of suit that. So a company, for example, like KPMG, where it's all about, yes, you want to serve the society, have impactful solutions for our clients. We also study the workforce, so there's flexible working hours at our firm, especially if you have a family. There's an understanding that, you know, you could come in a little later or earlier, depending on how you work. So I'm an early riser, so I start work very early, and then I would leave early so that I could get to go home and deal with my daughter, etc., and put her to sleep, sing her stories and all that. So to me, that is very important in terms of aligning your purpose. And remember, your purpose is not just a statement on the wall, right? It's how we act, how we move, what we do. It's our why, right? And basically doing that and having that within your organization will attract millennials to it.
Okay, thanks. I think our time is up. So I just want to ask all attendees actually to give another round of applause for Kevin, Maura, Chay, and Melanie. Thanks a lot, guys. And